Hello everybody, welcome back to another live stream. My name is Jake Rhodes with ADJ, and today we're going to be taking a look at a couple of things actually. Mostly our Airstream devices and our wireless WiFLY wireless DMX and how to connect them. So today I'm going to be going over the Airstream regular app, the Airstream Pro app, tell you the differences between those. I will also be going over the regular Airstream versus the Airstream DMX Bridge and what the differences between those two are. Another wireless DMX option, our WiFLY EXR battery that I have here. And I actually have pre-recorded a little setup video to show you guys exactly how to hook up the wireless DMX. What units I have with me today. I have my two Hydrobeam X1s up top here, which have included WiFLY wireless DMX chip. So those connect directly to them. And I also have in the totems here Element ST hexes, which are our new compact Element wireless battery operated PAR unit. As always, I'm going to be monitoring the chat. I have it up on my phone here on the stand, so if you have a question or want to say hi or anything along those lines, feel free. I'll be able to watch it right from here. So go ahead and say hi and tell us where we're watching from. Okay. That being said, let's jump right into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is the different units. So there's two different units that you can use with the Airstream DMX. Hey Karen, how's it going? Nice to see you. So one is just called the Airstream DMX, and the other option we have is called the Airstream DMX Bridge. And you know, actually, the WiFLY EXR battery is a very good example of what the DMX Bridge looks like. So the only difference between the DMX Bridge and the EXR battery is, well, this is a battery operated, but and instead of having one little signal antenna here, it has two, exactly like the DMX Bridge does here. What's up, Ted? Jose, thanks for joining us. Tom from Springfield, Ohio says hello. Hello, hello. So the regular Airstream is going to look exactly like this, except it's only going to have one port out and one WiFLY universe. Essentially, one antenna does one thing. So you may notice this WiFLY EXR battery only has one antenna. That's because it only takes one signal. Well, you may ask, well, why does the Airstream need two different antennas then? Well, that's because I have a wireless connectivity to my iPad here, and the other is the antenna for the wireless DMX. And I guess I probably should have started there. What is the Airstream? What's up, Jay David? Nice to see you again. Thanks for tuning in. David says, greetings from the Netherlands. Hello, David. Davey, excuse me. Hello, Davey. So what is the Airstream? The Airstream is not our easiest to use device, or I should say app, but it's probably, and it's not the hardest to use, I guess I should put it that way. It's a very middle of the line DMX controller. It's part of it goes into the family with the other controllers that we have via the iPad. For example, my DMX Go, I would say that's the very easiest one to use. Most of the time, all you need to do is hook it up, patch your lights in, and then there you go, boom. You can just go into the live screen, and the lights will start doing things. Martin, hey, what's going on, Martin? Of course, from the UK. Good to see you, Martin. The Airstream is a little bit different than that, and it requires a little bit more skill level and knowledge into DMX and lighting solutions in general. So there is no real auto functions or anything like that. The Airstream is really good if you want to have, you know, set up your scenes exactly how you want them to look and to play back those scenes and to run them in shows or for auto chasing. we've had production companies in Chicago, like Canal, not Canal, we've had production companies in Chicago that have actually used these Airstream devices for whole blocks, be able to control, walk around, and connect to you know, their WiFLY dongle. These actually have a range up to 2,500 feet line of sight, and that's a little bit different when you start getting into having obstacles in your way. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about networking. But you know, the Airstream device is really great for when you want something iPad or maybe even church related, so you can just walk around. You know, actually a lot of sound engineers do that. They'll have their sound mixing console right on their iPad, and they'll walk around the room and be able to listen. This is very similar to that. You can walk around your venue, your ballroom, wherever you want to use this DMX, I mean the Airstream device, and you can set looks, switch between looks, make corrections here and there. And yeah, so that is the Airstream. And I guess one of the benefits while using an Airstream is that it comes directly with the WiFLY wireless DMX antenna and receiver. So if you have units that have WiFLY chips in them, like my 4 units, well, 2 units I'm using here, 2 types of units I should say, they'll connect directly to them through a little bit of setup. We'll go through that in a second here. You can connect directly to those lights wirelessly if they have that embedded chip. However, a lot of lights don't have that embedded chip. And something I also know, that this is our WiFLY wireless DMX chip, which is our own personal chip. So it won't work with other wireless devices from other manufacturers. One of the biggest that I can think of right now is WDMX. They're not compatible. Different protocols. However, with lights that either have other DMX chips in them, which is rare, or don't have any wireless DMX chips at all, which is pretty much the majority of them, just have DMX ins and outs, you can use this WiFLY EXR battery. And these are really cool because you can just come right out of your console, whatever console you're using, plug it into the DMX in. There's 2 DMX ports, 3-pin and 5-pin here. And then that will connect, and that will send out that same DMX signal, whatever universe you plug that into, over wireless. So let's say, even though, you know, let's just stick with ADJ components altogether. Let's say you had, Alberto has a question, InnoPocket Scan can use Airstream. So the InnoPocket Scan does not have a wireless DMX chip like we just talked about. However, what you can do, and this is a perfect example of that, let's say you have, what we were saying, MyDMX 3.0, and your customer, let's say we're doing a church or a ballroom, wanted a bunch of uplights around the outside of the walls. So what you can do is you can bring in any of your elements, PARs, and you can connect this from a line to your console, or for instance, the MyDMX 3.0. You can plug this right into the interface, and that will send out this wireless signal to all those element PARs. So you can have your whole rest of your rig rigged up, say you're DJing up top, and you just want to control your wireless PARs without any data cables or anything. Since they are battery operated, you can hook them up right there. You don't need the Airstream app. That's where the WiFLY EXR battery comes useful. Like we were also saying with, let's for instance, Alberto's InnoPocket spots. So let's say we have the DMX, we're using the Airstream in this case. We have the the Airstream DMX Bridge. We have a wireless signal being sent out. However, those units do not accept the wireless signal. They don't do anything with them. There's nothing to receive that wireless signal. You can take this WiFLY EXR battery, and the cool thing about it is, like it says on the front of the unit here, it's battery operated. You flip on the battery for the event. You can put it right up next to it or just below your totem here, whatever your lights are. Run a DMX cable right to it. Even if it's just a 3-footer, you can just plug it in right at the back of here, and with the 3 and 5-pin DMX outs on the side, and it will receive that signal and transmit it right to there. So that's really cool. It can act as a transceiver or a receiver. It really just depends on your operations. All right. So we talked about the different units and the different types of dongles. So the 4-stream versus the Airstream. I just touched upon that a little bit, but the biggest difference between the regular Airstream and the 4-stream is, one, the 4-stream has a menu on it that you can configure all of your settings right from the top of it within there, right from this integrated menu. The Airstream, like the WiFLY EXR battery, doesn't have a screen to it. However, and I'll show you this in a second when we switch to my iPad view, we won't go into that yet, is you can actually, through an app, connect to it and set all the settings internally through a configure app. So you don't need to use the menu, however, it's nice to have. Another big difference is the regular Airstream only has a limited amount of universes. It has one hardline universe and it has one wireless universe. The 4-stream, if you can guess why it's called the 4-stream, is because it has 4 universes. It has three 5-pin DMX outs, so you can hardline from there. For instance, if I'm having, let's say I want to run this whole showroom on the 4-stream, I could put the 4-stream up in my rig and run 3 universes of hardline DMX, and then for everything else, I have my last single wireless universe. So the way those work is port 1 is universe 1, port 2, DMX out 2 is universe 2, DMX out 3 is universe 3, and DMX 4 is going to be your WiFLY wireless DMX. And you can actually configure those any way you want, and actually what universes are patched here in the app, and I'll show you all about that in a little bit here. I'm just trying to give you guys a general overview. All right, so moving down my list here, let's see. We talked about the WiFLY EXR battery, very nice. So here's something that may confuse you if you're not used to the Airstream product line at all. And that is because we have 2 different Airstream apps. We have the Airstream Basic app and we have the Airstream Pro app. And personally, I see no reason why you shouldn't use the Pro app for what I'm about to get into it right now. The Airstream Basic app has everything the Pro app does, except the Pro app does it a little bit more refined. The biggest difference that the Pro app has versus the regular Airstream is the effects engine. The effects engine is a lot more refined. It allows you to have a lot more control, especially if you're used to programming consoles like how I am. You're used to up to a very tiny detail of control. And the opposite of that would be like the MyDMX Go, where you just set it live, woohoo, we're doing figure 8s, great. The Airstream will allow you to have the very minute areas of control. So you can control it pretty much almost exactly how you would be able to control it on a regular hard console. That's the biggest difference. Other than that, there are some UI features, what's the right term here? Quality of life features that are changed. And from what I remember, there's also a no matrix grid, and allows you to patch a lot more fixtures. As opposed to the regular app only has 4 pages of fixtures. This one has 24 pages of fixtures. And there's a lot of other small differences, but that's pretty much all the big differences right there. I would suggest you use the Pro app, get used to that because it allows you to have a lot more control. All right, I think now is when we should start switching over and talking about the actual Airstream product on my iPad here. So Candace, if you can give me my iPad screen, we're going to start going through these features. So I have hooked up a mouse here so you guys can see exactly where I'm pointing. So I'm sorry if you hear the clicks, I cannot turn that off. But we're going to get into it. So we're going to start here in the Fixtures tab, and this is where all your lights are going to be patched. I just wanted to keep this video very simple because I'm really trying to not go over an hour on this, but we're going to be talking about a lot today, so I'm going to try to not rush through it, but get through it pretty fast here. So here's your Fixtures page, and you can see I already have my 4 lights patched in here. Let's talk about patching first. So this is a very similar view, however, in a different it's in a list look. So as you can see, there's lots of different pages here that you can switch between. And right now I'm using this with a mouse. You can scroll, oops, there's back on that. Go back in here, patching. You can scroll with the regular mouse, with the regular touchpad, but I'm just showing you with the mouse so you can see what I'm clicking on. So I've already patched these in. Let's try patching a new light to show you how to patch. So there's a lot of profiles already in here, but if you don't, and we update this all the time, so if you don't have something, reach out to us. Either you can make it on your own, or we can have something, made for you. You can choose custom profiles, and this is where all your custom profiles you make are going to be stored. But for instance, our own library has a lot of lights, and we have a lot of other manufacturers in here too. But making your own is going to be super easy. So let's just go into ADJ here, and let's throw in a 12p hex IP13 channel node. You know what? I lied. I'm going to throw in an element ST hex. Just throw in another element ST hex. So you can choose how many quantities you want here and how many right here. And then plus or minus, and you can hit patch. And then there you go, loaded. And you may notice, well, Jake, why does that have a picture of the unit right here? Sorry about that, guys. Why does this have a unit right here and this just has a light? Well, that's because you can go in here and click Information tab, and it lets you go in to set a lot of different options here. So the reason why I say you can make your own profile for this is that it's super easy to do so for most lights, I should say. Unless you're having a light that's just a lot of pre-made macros, that works. It just gets a little more difficult there. But for the most part, when you're dealing with PARs and moving heads, one channel is one feature. So for here, like red, for instance, you can assign in here, assign what type of bit fade it is. And I'm not going to build any fixtures here, but I'm just showing you this is what that unit is made of. And generally when you're making the profile, all it is you assign what kind of parameter it is and you type it in. I can add a number of channels here to change this profile, subtract if I want to add it. I make it less if you're going to make your own preset here. Going back up to the tab, fixture name, starting up top, moving down, element ST hex 12 channel. That's perfect. That's what that's going to show up on your fixture list. You don't really need to do that. Now here's the button image, and this is really cool because, don't mind my selfie right there, I can go in here to my recent lights, and I just took a screen grab of the ST hex. You can move and scale it, and now I have the ST hex image on that patch list. So I don't have to guess, or I don't have to guess what that unit is. Or for instance, if you're just handing this off to another person, you can say, here you go, and they don't have to be like, well, what's the element ST hex? It's those lights. And they can look around the room and be like, oh, those are those. Button name. So what is ST hex? You can change this to, if you're familiar with the units, element ST hex. You can change these to, for instance, we're taking that same example of lighting different walls around the room with the XT hexes. You can say wall lighting, and I'm just typing that in. Done. And you can set the start address and what universe that patches to. And that's pretty much it for the patching. It's very super and simple. Yes, that's right. Hashtag don't mind my selfie. So now we have the element ST hex patched. And you may say, oh, well, you don't need that anymore, right? Correct. So we're just going to delete it. So that's how easy it is to add a fixture onto your page and to add a picture of that fixture. So that was the patching screen. So now, as you can see, this is exactly how the list looks like, except in a more of a grid, easier to use function, especially on a tablet. I'm just going to use my finger for this really quick. I can go and select these super fast, and selecting them will then activate them for you to go into your channels and then start designing from there. But before we go into that, we're going to talk more about what screens we have here in the fixtures setting. So we're going to go into universe. So this is where we're talking about when it becomes really important when we talk about what universe we're outputting. So remember, I have this connected through my Air Stream DMX Bridge. This will allow me to output 4 universes of data. You can also output, I'll output the same universe out of all those 4 ports. So for universe 1, I have this patched to SACN universe 4. And in my Air Stream DMX Bridge, I have the streaming ACN turned on. You can also use this over ArtNet and connect this over a USB device. That works as well. Or you can add this into a pre-existing network. For instance, if you have if you're doing a large event and you have internet all going through the same router, you can have this go through the lighting traffic go through that same thing as well. So for this, if I had universe 1 not patched as SACN universe 1, nothing would work. So I have all my lights, in case you missed it, I'll go back to it, patched as universe 1. Now I just want to make sure that's setting correctly, since I could have also patched all those lights at universe 4 and then it would have done the same thing. See, SACN universe 4. But since I had already patched them at SACN universe, I've already patched them. In case you missed. If I already patched them at lights. Excuse me. Since I already patched them as universe 1, I just wanted to change this really quick. So I enabled this to universe 4. But there's so many, so this is where you can go and set the ArtNet functionality, and we're not going to get into that today because that's going to take a lot of time to explain if you don't understand ArtNet and IP addresses. I suggest you look at a video for that. That has a lot of great detail in there, how to set up ArtNet on consoles. So that's how you can choose what universe you're outputting to. The next tab here is settings. So you can do a DMX MIDI out through, well, DMX triggering. You can also use the USB, integrated USB for this. You can select what MIDI controller you have in here. Obviously, we're not sending or receiving any MIDI, so that's not a problem here. And you can if you do have a MIDI device connected, you can just go and scan these inputs and outputs, and it will actually register what devices you're going to be using. So for those, maybe we can do a MIDI video after this, but that's a lot of setup just right there, so we're going to keep on moving past that. Save archive. All right, so this is really important. Being able to save and load different shows. So for instance, like we're using that same ballroom wedding scene. You have that set up, ready to go. Okay, you do the event. Now the next event you do, let's say it's in a completely different space and you're only using you know, half of the lights. So that same show file won't work for that next event. Well, you go ahead and save that previous show as an archive and do your next show, you know, build it all up, make it look exactly how you want, and then you can save that look separately. So you can almost, and then let's say you go into your next gig. I know, gig, what is that? But let's say you go into your next gig and it's very similar to your big wedding setup you had for the first setup. Then you can load that same exact file through load and archive here, and it will you know, bring up and load that show file. So you don't have to start from scratch every single time, which is very important for people who are using this over same gigs, because it's the worst thing ever when you have to start from scratch after you spent hours into programming a show. Even just the simple scenes that I have made, you know, took me a decent amount of time to program them out, and I'll show you exactly how to do that in a little bit. Lock programming. So for people, let's say you're the lighting engineer and you're doing this, you know, gig, right, for a wedding. And let's say you're kind of in charge of everything. You set all the lighting up, then you have one of your other people on payroll or one of the volunteers that you're working with, and you want them just to run the show. Heck, you even give it to the bride's little nephew for him to have fun with the lights for a little bit, right? But you don't want him messing up anything of your presets. You can go ahead and enter, you can engage the program lock, which is a 4-digit pin, which will stop him from programming over anything that you have currently. So for any people that want to hand this to a client, or even if like it's a bar or, you know, more of like a professional application inside of an install, and you don't want anybody accidentally going in there messing up the hours of presets you've just made, lock it. It's really important to be able to lock and not mess it up. You can always save it as an archive and reload it, but save yourself the trouble, put a program lock on it. And then this is a case you just want to erase all the memory, you know, by all means, erase it. All right, it says that the screen, David says that your screen grab is getting out of focus. Can't read lettering or icons. You know, David, I'm not too sure what you're talking about because I'm looking at the stream on my phone here and I can see everything just fine. I'm not sure if that's maybe a bandwidth issue on your end. Let us know if you're having any of those issues and maybe we could try reconnecting. Moving down, we have revisions and different authenticated, you know, if you've actually, you know, got this app legally. Those are the settings you can go into. And then matrix, which is another thing we're not going to get into because it's a very simple video, but let's say you can actually create a matrix of all your different lights here and run effects over that matrix. And you can add more rows, columns, almost make it like yourself a little LED screen. You can load it, save it, clear it, name it, and then you can see that matrix up here. David says it's out of focus, but Martin says the screen is fine. All right, guys, well, if you can't see it, I think it's more of an internet speed issue. Sorry, you're going to have to bear with me. I'll try to be super descriptive in case you can't see it. So I'm going to go back up to my list here, and you're going to say, well, there's one more setting, and that's the X. What does the X do, Jake? Tell us. We have to know. It closes the menu. Wow, I know. Shocking. Let's see here. Master, clear. Okay, so I talked about all the things in the tab here. Now let's talk about pages. And I went over this briefly. Alberto asks, WiFLY comes with the software? Yes. So, well, it doesn't necessarily come with the software, Alberto. So this app you can actually download online right now, and there's no cost to it. To actually be able to get it to be used, you have to purchase the Airstream or Air Stream DMX Bridge. And that's where you start to get the protocol. And that's how it will connect to that Airstream device in order to output signal in the DMX, and in this case, WiFLY signal. So no, it doesn't come with the software, but you need the dongle to output. Same thing, let's reference our video last week, the MyDMX 3.0. If you don't, you can download that software, do cool things, you know, in the demo version, but unless you have that little two DMX little dongle, you're not going to be able to do anything with it. Hope that answers your question, Alberto. So let's talk about pages. In pages, I'm going to go and jump ahead a little bit. You can do the same thing in all the scenes. You can do shows, and I'll tell you exactly how that works. But pages is simply how many pages you have. On the patching screen, you can store 24 different lights, 24 pages of lights. So 24 times 24, that's a lot of lights. 14 and 15, I lied. Oh, I said 24, that's right. And we're back to 1. All right. Now, before we move on, I think it's time to show our video that we've prepared for you on how I actually set up these lights. So now that you saw how I patched them, I'm going to show you how to set them up over WiFLY or wireless DMX protocol. Candace, go ahead and roll that video. Thanks, Future Jake. Now I'm going to show you guys how to set up your units to make sure they communicate over WiFLY. I've already had them patched inside my console here, which I've just shown you, and now I'm going to show you how to address and turn the WiFLY on these units. So the first thing you're going to want to do is choose a WiFLY channel. And with the Airstream and the WiFLY EXR battery, you can choose from 1 to 14. What these numbers are really are different channels that the Wi-Fi signal will pass through. And usually it will bleed into the channel before it and the channel after. So right now we're going to use channel 11 because that's what I generally use and have good success with. that means it'll also bleed into channel 10 and to channel 12. The thing about wireless connectivity is that this is on the 2.4 gigahertz range, and there's a lot of other devices on the 2.4 hertz range. So if you're having connection issues, feel free to change those to 2 numbers across. So like I said, don't do 10 or 12. Choose 9 or 13 and try it again if you're having some signal issues. But more than likely, you can set it and you won't have any problems. So let's get into it. I'm going to show you how to do this with the HydroBeam X1. So now we're going to address and get the Wi-Fi channel on these HydroBeam X1s. So I'm going to go in here to my DMX address and take that to 15. DMX channel mode here is going to be 14, which it defaults to naturally. Perfect. Then I'm going to go down here to personality. I'm going to select my signal, and for signal I want to do WiFLY, make sure that's on. Perfect. And then WiFLY settings. So my WiFLY channel I'm going to set to 11. Start down in here, and then this says disable WiFLY, and so whatever this shows is what it's doing. So now that I hit enable WiFLY, it is going to connect, and there we go. We have a wireless connection on channel 11. Now we're going to set the DMX settings and Wi-Fi settings on our element ST hexes here. So my DMX address is going to be 29. Enter and back it out. My channel mode is going to be 12. Perfect. Enter. Back up. Now we're going to go into personality, WiFLY settings, set WiFLY channel. We're going to go ahead and set that to 11 since we're setting all of our stuff to 11. Enter and back out. Enable WiFLY. Yes. Enter. Back out. WiFLY on with power, just for this video, sure, why not? And then boom, there you go. You should have WiFLY control now. Alright, so now that we have set the correct address, the right user mode, and we've turned on the WiFLY settings and changed the Wi-Fi channel mode to 11 on all 4 of these units, let's test to make sure they work. So right now I have my 2 HydroBeams selected, so I'm just going to give them a little bit of movement. Perfect. Alright, those look good. Clear that out. And now let's check my element ST hexes down below. So I'm going to turn these guys on, and red. Perfect. Any more? Green? White? Blue? Perfect. Alright, we're all set up. Back to you, Jake. Alright, thanks me. So the only thing I didn't cover in that video is how to set your wireless DMX channel on your Airstream device. And Candace, you give me that iPad screen again, I'm going to show them exactly how to. So this app is the ADJ Airstream Pro app. Now we're going to go into the 4Stream config app. And this is where you can set a lot of your settings on your Airstream device. And the only way you can set this is if you establish a connection over Wi-Fi. So this is wirelessly talking to my Airstream device and is pulling settings from that. So I can enable or disable or choose to hide the network. You can set the network name, the password. So remember how in the video I was talking about 11, I want to use Wi-Fi channel 11. Well, it turns out actually behind me in the showroom we have a company called Acclaim, and they have a wireless showroom for all their lights in there, and they are actually on wireless Wi-Fi channel 11 as well. So I was getting some congestion issues on that network, sending some weird values around. So I switched it to Wi-Fi channel 8, and everything has been smooth since then. If you continue to have wireless Wi-Fi channel issues or stuttering on your lights, you need to keep on trying different wireless channels, and if you just cannot find one that works, you need to look into getting a Wi-Fi analyzer. And if you're going to events in a lot of different locations, and you may want to look into getting something, either a dedicated device, or I know there's a really good app on the Android platform that will just show you all the different devices on Wi-Fi and what channel is the right one to use. And like I said, it bleeds into the one on the left and the one on the right, so you have to change it accordingly. For me, Wi-Fi channel 8 worked perfectly. So, station mode. And this is available with the 4-stream only. It basically allows you to connect onto external networks. I have this disabled right now because I don't want this connected onto another, for instance, our wireless internet. Same thing. You can have this hooked up through an external network, and this is where you go and set all your IP addresses and your router and your netmax. Please don't, bomb me. I'm just kidding. That IP address is nothing. So this is where you enable your ArtNet settings and change your ArtNet and subnet. We're not going to get into that today because that would be a very long video. However, I am sending data through SACN, so as long as you have this enabled on your 4-stream, it will be sending data. And remember how we talked about go back to it really fast, my universe settings, they're sending through SACN, and I can either turn on ArtNet or SACN. Going back to the 4-stream, this is where you change the WiFLY channel. You can press up or down, and keep in mind on the 4-stream, since this has a menu up top, you can change all of this right from on the top of the menu. It's very cool. We get into resetting it, all the different firmware versions, X, Y, and Z, and then snapshots. So snapshots are cool because, at least in the 4-stream, you can save snapshots. If you lose data or signal, for instance, gosh forbid it happens, you can set a look and save a snapshot, and it will basically store those DMX values if you were to lose connection. So it will default and go into that snapshot. Kind of cool. Or you can just save looks this way if you want. I don't really think that's valuable considering you have all of this open. And to answer your question, so Alexander asked, hi dude, a question for later, why is this not available on Android like the MyDMX Go is? So that's a great question. And what it really comes down to, Candice, can you switch back to me? And what it really comes down to is performance. Having a lighting controller on a tablet consumes a lot of processing power. And Ken, the developer of the app, really made this work for iPad. And the way Apple goes around with licensing and settings, for instance, one issue about that is having the DMX app go on in the background. It'll only limit you to be able to have that open in the background for 10 minutes, and then after that, it will completely shut it off due to privacy settings. The way Android and Apple are designed and work, and the configurations within each tablet is completely different. So developing an app for an Android platform versus an iPad platform is very different. So from my understanding, we do not have any that's the right word. We don't have any plans to bring this to the Android platform. However, the iPad platform is very secure, it's very powerful, and it's proven to be true. So I hope that answers your question, Alex. I know it's not a perfect end-all, be-all answer, but this is what we have, and it works very well on iPad, and you're not compromising in performance, because there is a lot of data and a lot of power being transferred and done within this iPad. All right. Let's get back into my iPad. So we talked, if I can transfer to the iPad, Candace, perfect, thank you. So now we're done with all the setup and the nitty-gritty. Let's make sure I am done here. Perfect. All right, now I get to show you guys what lights actually do. So can I get my lights, my ambient lights off? Perfect, and a double screen grab. Awesome, thank you. So now you guys will be able to see exactly what we're doing here. Oh, excuse me, my menu is still on that one. I forgot to turn it off. So I am going to select my Hydro Beam X1s here. You know what, actually, let's start with the elements since they're a little easier to talk about. So here are my element ST hex and element hex, the same thing, but I just named them differently so you can see the difference. I'm going to select those since they're highlighted, and I'm going to go to channels mode. Now, I already have the dimmer and strobe up, so I can just turn values on. This is really cool because this is where you're going to be programming all your main looks in here. So for instance, these are the individual faders. So I can slide this fader up for red, green, and if you don't know anything about lighting, you need to turn your master dimmer up because that will turn all your dimmers up, and you need to set your strobe to an open value. And you may say, well, all these different values are doing different things in here. How do I know what is what? And it really comes down to you need to know your lights. You know, if you're new to your lights and you don't know what they do, you're going to have the DMX traits open to the left of you to see what it does. For instance, how do I know what this program 110 does? You don't. And that's just something you're just going to have to figure out when you're programming, you know, getting used to your lights. It's a learning curve. So you may ask, what did I just do right there? Let's talk about these buttons up top before we get into faders, because these are pretty, you know, obvious. Okay, green, and this one's called blue, so it's going to be blue, right? Let me turn these all the way off. So on the top here is basically all your master devices. You have a master, this is your master dimmer right here, so let's turn on a look really fast. So, oops, my master dimmer is set to up, and I can take that down, and it will pull down all the values. So if I had my my Hydro Beam X1s on, it would do the same. So you may be asking, what's the slider here on the side? And that's because when we get into more of the effects engine and queuing up different quote-unquote shows, you can set them to trigger over, you know, a certain BPM, which you can get from the audio levels here on an iPad. You can hook up a microphone through the audio jack as well if you want to do that. You can set your mic gain, so you can see here I'm peaking a lot here on red, so you don't want that, so we can set it down lower. And it just depends on how loud your music is, where your microphone is, and you can actually set in one of the effects different lights to change color depending on what decibel level. So it's just if your bass is kicking, boom, 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 you can set that to trigger red. If your highs are kicking, tss, 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 you can set that to trigger a different color. And we'll get into that when we talk about the effects engine. But this is where you set all your audio settings. So you can also set black for a blackout. And you can tap a BPM. So if you still want, if you don't want to have, you know, just to have an audio in, you can set a BPM by yourself. I'm going to try to get close to 120 as possible. Oh, I just missed it. There was 128. But regardless, there you go. So now I can clear all that out. Now we're going through my audio source. Cool. So the next button across here is clear. So you can either clear selected or clear all. Clear all will clear everything that is selected down here, plus everything that is selected in all your other units. So you can clear selected to clear just what we have selected here with this one type of unit, or whatever selected, or clear all. And again, the X is to close that menu. So this down here, I'm going to turn on my dimmer. Hold on. Yep, make sure those are selected. I'm going to turn on my dimmer and my strobe, and we're going to turn on a color. So you can either set colors from down there, or you can go up here to this color picker and set colors live. So, you know, you can just point and click with your finger. Woohoo, we're doing color effects now. Not really, but you can set and choose a color. So this is another thing that is new to the Pro app itself. Let's take that same image, use that. I can actually set the color to an image. This is kind of neat. I don't know many platforms and objects that can do that. So if you have like a look that's like, man, I really want that look, as long as it's not brown, then you'll be able to actually color mix to that light, and it'll change the RGB values to get that color. And if you want to, clear that out, then boom, go right back to the color picker. And with this won't do anything with our static par lights because it's not a moving head. but this is actually an encoder right here, so you can move around your moving heads quickly without having to go pan, tilt, and I'll show you more of those when we get into the Hydra BMX ones. So this button right here on top will set the pan and tilt to its home 127, 127, or 128 in this case, home values. All right, so before we go and save a look, I'm going to clear all, go back to my fixtures page, deselect these, select my Hydra BMX ones, and show you how they're different. All right, so you can't see them, but these actually just went down to a home position. So what I'm going to do is, down to an off state position. I'm going to set these at home so they're pointing forward and facing straight up. See how that will move these values. See how the values are moving on the screen. Back to home. I'm going to take my dimmer, my shutter, and my dimmer and raise it all the way up. Now my beams are on. Now I can go and scroll these down here. Hello, you can see me again. So now you can see these beams, and I can move them proportionally, and I can just tap with my finger. It's a little harder with the mouse connected, but at least you guys can see what I'm doing here. You can also do the same thing here, and if you want to adjust it just to the left a little bit, you have your pan fines up and down and your tilt fines for minor adjustments, for instance. And if you want, so let's say you want to do minute little changes, this is really hard to do with your finger. So Alex asks, what is the oldest iPad that this works on? To be honest, I don't know off the top of my head. However, if you go to adj.com and go to the Airstream Pro app, you can actually see an entire list of iPads that this works with. And if it's not on that list, then it doesn't work with it. So there's a functionality here. So going back to what I was talking about, thanks for that question, Alex. You can actually double click on this value here and either type in your own value, 255, 128, go back there. Or if you want things just to the left or right a little bit, you can press up and down. Perfect. So you can really make refined and minute little changes. Same thing with the pan fine. You really want to make this fine. And you're not going to be able to see this scrolling up, but if I do it majorly, there you go, there's your fine changes. All right, so yeah, same thing with these, move those around. Yeah, we talked about that. So this looks a little bit different than our element hexes only because it's a different light altogether. So for here, let's go through a color scroll and move up the color wheel. So you may say, well, what does each light do? And this doesn't work here because this is only with color mixers. So you would want to tap this and go individually here. And did you see how in between that I have a split color? So this is where we take a big separation between the MyDMX Go and the Airstream device. MyDMX Go, you click a single color, okay, it's red, boom. You click another color, oh, it's blue, huzzah. With this, you have to get into the nitty-gritty of it, but you can get a lot more customization out of your looks, and especially when we get into the effects engine. So there's your colors. You can move different gobos. You can go into your prisms, add a prism rotation, counterclockwise, counterclockwise, your dimmer fine, throw your frost in. So let's say, all right, I really like this look, and this is exactly what I want to play back is the right term. So now I can go over here and hit save. And remember how we talked about all these different pages. So now, before I save anything, let's go, right now we're going to be saving to a scene page 1. Just so you can see exactly what that page looks like. Here is my page. And what I do, and you can do this very differently, you can make one button do one thing, and then you can stack those buttons on top of each other. So right here I have all my pre-selected buttons, and I had actually changed the color to the provided. Hold on, we have a question. I'm reading it. To the provided color. So if it's violet, I can make this pink. Cyan. This is more accurate to cyan. I just messed up with that. But for instance, red. All right, so the reason why it wasn't pulling that is because I have this active value selected here. So now we have this value selected here. Let's say save. Now I'm just going to save this to an empty slot down at the bottom here. Before I do this, I want to address one question. So Alex asks again, are you using haze in your room? And yes, you would have to buy an iPad, so this would be an extra cost for getting the system. It's correct. You do have to have an iPad to use this. However, I will say that this is one of the most cost-effective options to have a Lighting DMX controller. I mean, if you don't have a computer, you would also have to buy the computer. If you want to, you know, have a lighting console, you would have to buy the lighting console. So it's no problem, Alex. You can ask as many questions as you want. And to answer your question, yes, I do have haze in your room. That's how you are able to see these beams. If you don't have haze in the room, you will not. It won't hit the particles in the air, and you won't be able to see anything. Moving on. So scene file name. Back to this. You aren't gonna. You really don't want to change this at all because this is how it saves. So you should leave this alone, just how it is, unless you clicked the wrong button. You said you wanted to save it to scene 2-19. You can change that there. So scene button. So see this button, as you can see here on my live feed, it is red. So I can actually change this button to this. So we're operating in very small procedures here, you know, just doing one light at a time. You can also save looks that are every single light. So, and we'll get into that in a second. And the reason why you would want to do that is because you can press one button to pull up an entire scene. But instead of setting this to a color, you can also set this to an image. For instance, I can set this to this image. I don't know why you would want to set this to this image. It's up to you. But where this can become really useful is you can actually take a picture of that look from your iPad and then store that in the scene button so you know exactly what that look is. So that's very cool. I'm going to go back to here, set this here. Button label. You can label this exactly how you want. For this application, I'm going to label this red beam. I'm going to say beamage because that is my hashtag quote line. Whoops, can't spell. Beamage. Great. And then you can set a fade in, fade out time, and momentary flash on or off. And that's basically so you can flash through your looks and see what they are. So now when we have that, we're going to save that. For your file for this name already exists. That is fine. We're going to overwrite that. Okay, great. So now we can go back to, where did I save that? Oh, I saved it over my blackout. Whoopsie daisy, but that's fine. That's why it asked me for the override. So thanks, Brett. Thanks for tuning in. Good info here. I agree. Thank you. Now I have all these preset looks. So let's go. Oops. I have 99 pages of different looks I can store here, and that's why I kind of space them out a little bit differently, while this being all my beam looks. And then down here on, well, that's 99, page 2 is all my different hex looks. Excuse me. It was the opposite way around, actually. The elements are on page 1, the beams are on page 2. So I can have different looks here. I have my Congo blue, and say I can have strobe, and this is something I've set within those hard values. Here, let me go back to my fixtures tab so you can see what these are actually looking like. So it will call whatever we're selecting in these channels here. See strobe at 85, that's not at full because we're actually strobing. Now to make larger looks, let's set, well, why not pink magenta? And let's go a violet frost. All right, so let's say this is a scene I want to make. I can go here, and if you're just recording, I showed you how to record in the Channels tab. Now you can record in the Scenes tab by having all these selected and then saving these. So we'll make sure I save these to the right page this time. I can say, set this to magenta and say, I'm going to type this so it's faster, magenta frost. So this is my overall look. I'm not going to set a fade out or anything. Success scene has been saved. Now I can go down to scroll page 3, turn that off, and then boom. Now I can switch it to blue. Now red all. And see, this is still being grabbed. So you have to be careful, because if you're going forward, it will turn off that look. But if you go backwards, it'll actually pull some of that similar information from that magenta frost. And that's kind of how you translate between different looks. So going forward, we'll jump right to it. Going backwards, we'll grab some of that from before, just so you know if there's some values to grab from. So that's how you record different looks all together. Let's do an effect, because there's lots of different effects we can talk about in here. So I'm going to grab my Hydra Beam X. You know what? No, I'm going to start with color. We're going to do our element ST Hex color effects first. So I've pre-recorded some just to show you. Here I'm going to select color cycle. So now, as you can see, excuse me, I'm going to get some water. Excuse me. Now you can see that they're doing a color cycle. Let's deselect that and make one of our own. So you click this tab button up here in the corner, you can see you can choose from the different effects you can make. You can do pan and tilt, color, flash, basic, and the list is not an effect. It just shows you a list view of all your different effects you've made. And of course, our handy dandy close menu button right there, in case you were wondering. So let's do this color effect first. So this is where I'm actually going to show you the difference between this color effect engine and the color effect engine on the regular Airstream. So we're going to go into Airstream DMX. That's fine. Nothing's connected. So we're going to go here, and that is fine. Color. So this is the old Airstream effects engine. See how you can choose the color range. You can choose, and it'll show what color it's going on. No fixture selected. You can choose the speed and offset. That's handy dandy and all, and you'll get most of what you need done. But the Airstream Pro does a lot more. For instance, you can set what type of color effect. Right now, this is just going to do a general color scroll from left to right. You can limit what colors are in there from these two values. So if I want to only go to green to blue, it'll only go between those two values. So you can set the speed of it. So if I want it to go faster, I can set the fade of it to fade longer. And phasing means that these will do separate things. So this is about a 50% phase right now. Now they're doing things simultaneously. So green, then red, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll apply a delay time to it. We can do the same thing with other effects. So this is more of a pop look. So it'll just start changing different colors. Same thing with the square. This is going to be, the way this is that this is, since it's a circle, it's a lot more soft and flowy, and you can set a fade between them. And then the square, whoop, clicking too fast here, the square is actually going to shift a lot more sharp and quickly. And then this is going to be an overall chase, I guess you should say. And then these last two modes is where, we have Jared in the chat. It says, Jake, hello. Hey, Jared, thanks for joining us. All right, moving on. These last two modes are for sound active modes. And right now, we have a set a BPM. Actually, it's going off of me talking. So let's just set a BPM. That's about 126. Perfect. So now it should flash to that BPM. I guess it's just really quiet. Here we go. Set, whoopsie daisies. Go back to color. Go back to where we were at. So it will scroll through the colors as your sound active mode goes. So if it's a faster BPM or versus a slower BPM, for instance, it's grabbing my voice for right now, there you go. That is a color effect. And like I said before, this is the color effect that we chose. It's just a color cycle. The next thing you can choose is the flash. And this is an example of the flash. So it'll chase between these different lights. And if I have them all selected and turned on, it'll chase between all four of these lights. It's also doing a color cycle. Okay, so I'll turn all this off. Now, let's talk about the flash screen. So now I'm going to go ahead and I have all these selected. Steve Haynes asked, can you use the Pro app with the original bridge? Yes, you can. All you need to do is turn on SAC on our ArtNet and it works. That's why I say there's really no reason to not use the Pro app. And then Nathan says, hello from Atlanta. What's up, Nathan? Hello back to you from California. Let's see, where was I at? Effects, there we go. So I can select a different type of strobe. So right now it's going 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can set the speed of this strobe to go faster or slower. Or example, you can set the intensity, so this will be a lower intensity now. And then the fade of those. You can also, here, I need to turn on these lights so you can see what we're doing here. Here we go. It gets them getting used to here. So I'm going to turn my dimmer up here. All right. Now let's play this effect. No fixture selected. Ah, there we go. That's why, because it'll bounce back and forth between them. So now it's bouncing back and forth between 1 and 2. Basically different flash or strobe options. I can speed this up. And then I guess is another option, 1 and 2. Basically different selections. And from here, you can either choose to change the direction of that to go backwards and forwards. You can clear it. You can loop it. You can just have it go off of a single unit on a single. You can add more flashes. What do I do here? Here we go. And record your options here. So now, these are all just different strobe options. I guess I'm just trying to say that over and over and over again. And now I'm going to change this one speed, and this is basically a random scroll speed. So this is the chase strobe that I have selected, as you can see. Nathan says, I'm going to miss you guys with no LDI. I know, Nathan, we're all bummed too. It seems that trade shows are canceling left and right here. But, you know, it's for everybody's safety, and the sooner everybody's safe and the United States is COVID-free, then the sooner we can all get back to work. So it's a bummer, but I think it's necessary. So that's strobe. So the next one is called fireworks, and you may say, well, what is that? That is a basic effect. And I have to actually turn on my dimmer here. So this may look very convoluted and say, well, why did you call this fireworks? And that's because, and this is something that's only in the Pro app, you can actually assign curves to all your different elements. So this gets a little complicated here if you're not used to more larger console effects rigs, but you can actually assign curves to every single attribute here. So I can do a ramp up and ramp down. For this one, I can do pulse, so it pops on and off. For this one, I can do a very slow ramp on and off. And let's play that. So now you can see these are going up and down really fast, and these are just popping on, popping off, and a slow ramp up and slow ramp down. So that's why I made the fireworks effect, because I just thought it looked like fireworks, personally. But you can do this with your moving heads as well. And we're getting past the hour mark here, so I'm going to try to really hurry up through this, because this is a lot of information to try to cram into one live stream. But you can continue to go ahead and do these to all these other ones and then load and save it. So that's your fireworks. And then the last one I want to talk about is, check my fixtures here, turn these off, turn my hydro beams on, and that's fine, they can bleed blue. Let's throw a prism in there and throw some prism rotation, because who doesn't like a good prism? And I can choose, these are pan and tilt effects. So right now it's going to do a circle in the sky. That sounds like a Journey song. Circle in the sky. Just kidding. Fly in and out. Great. Now let's make our own. See, these are going to go back to their home position. That's fine. Blinding me in the face. That's great. So let's do that circle effect. So you can either choose that, and I'm going to have to do this with my fingers because it's impossible to do over mouse. You can actually, kind of like you're pinching into a view a photo on your iPhone, you can elongate it, make it wider. Sorry, there you go. Make it narrower or wider, or clear that out and draw your own. Let's say, woohoo, we're having fun. Well, actually, I'm going to clear that out. I'm going to do a single line from the bottom to the top. And I want you to watch something. I'm going to go really fast and then really slow and then really fast again. And watch how this plays on my screen here. See in the middle where it goes really slow? It actually registers the speed my finger is traveling and will make that go really slow. It's kind of a cool, nifty little feature. And then now it'll go fast again now that my finger traveled quicker. So you can do a lot, really custom level effects here. Clear that out. I can do a line left to right, press play. But let's make that same fly in, fly out look. So I'm going to pinch it, move it up top here, press play. And then this is really slow, so I'm going to speed this up so we can actually see what we're looking at here. There we go, that's pretty centered. All right, so now I'm going to make that a little faster. So now phase, what phase does, and you can actually watch the dot on here grow further and further apart, applies a slight delay between these functions. Fan will apply, a fan and bring it out. And this is, again, more console terms if you're not used to larger, hard consoles. So you can select any of these different functions and move it from there. Let's say you want it to just look like that. So really easy to use and intuitive effects system. And this is very different from how the original app was. So it gives you a lot of really cool options to design. For instance, my fly in and out look. Super easy to make, and then I want to go to Sky Circle. And you can make this and then record it into a look. So the last thing that we haven't talked about here is this last tab. Oh, actually, you know what? There's one more thing I forgot to talk about, and it's this little fader button here, and that's just to show you in a different format all the different looks. So this would be great. So for instance, these are all my main looks I want to play at my gig, and then I'm going to switch now to my second look. Fade this one out. See how these flash in between these different looks? And that's because we didn't set a fade time. If we were to set a fade time to these looks, then they would fade in and out. So the last thing I'm going to do to show you guys, because I know this video is running a little long, is to set up a show. And shows are really cool if you just want to have really cool quick effects to dive into different colors. Let's make one. And again, list is just viewing a different list, and X is to close it, as we have said multiple times. We're going to edit. So my first step, I'm going to go to my page 3 and go to my red all. My second step, I'm going to go to page 3. Keep on missing it. Go to blue all. Whoa. No. Okay, well, it's going to go to scene 1, 3. There you go. Messed up, but that's fine. And then my third step is going to go to page 3, scene 2. Why not? Now I can set how long it holds for. So let's say it's 1 second. 1 second each. So I want it to cycle between these 3 looks for 1 second. Super easy to use. And that's why I say make all your different looks and as many as individual things as possible. Alex says, this is interesting. You can keep going. Yes, I know. But we're going to post this up on YouTube later, and not everyone wants to watch an hour-and-a-half video of me talking. I know. They don't want to watch me talk for an hour and a half. I say the same thing. But to each their own. So now we're going to save this as show 1. And you can change the color, the image, and whatever. We'll name that red. And right here is enable tapped audio sync. And this is where it's cool if you're more DJing or having some music in the background. You can tap that and it will change the color selection. It will change each look to the BPM. And for this, we're going to leave loop on. And we're going to name this one, just for you, Alex. Alex. I'm just going to name it Alex because Alexander's too long. So this is going to be Alex's look. And we're going to name that show 1-1 so that pops up in the very first page on the very first tab. Now we're going to save it. Success, show has been saved. Jared, I don't think I could save that one on live. So we're going to back out. And let's say, let's go to another look. Go back to our grid view here. Green beams, purple, magenta things. Okay, great. Now let's say we're going to have the show take over. So now we're cycling between those three looks with 1 second pauses in between them. All right, well, let me look at my little list here. We talked about the effects engine, we talked about scenes and recording them, we talked about shows and how to make a show. My last thing here is wrap up and ending. So that's pretty much it for the Stream DMX and the Airstream app in general. So I'm going to clear out all. Thanks, guys. We can get my lighting back up here now. Oh, that's bright. So yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. If you have any questions about the Airstream, feel free to reach out to us. It's easily one of the most easy to use, intuitive controllers we have to offer that's on a non-PC or laptop, application. You can walk around the room. For instance, I'm going to disconnect this. So, Candace, can you just clear the, I don't want anything happening to it. Yep, I'm just going to disconnect this. So now I'm going to walk over here to you guys and start making some scenes and making some cool looks while I close out here. So, yes, I like these red beams, and let's make my totems, yellow or whatever. Yes, I love that. And I can save it from there, and that's just me walking around with the iPad. So really cool for ballroom entertainers or anything like that. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Give us a call. We're here. We're here to support you guys. And I think I've had enough COVID messages, but really all I want to say is stay safe, be careful, guys, and we'll get back to it eventually. And we're going to hit the ground running. Thanks for joining us. Thanks everybody who's been commenting and said hi. We'll see you in the next one.